Welcome to the Black Belt Business Podcast. My name is Matthew Brenner, and today's guest is Alan Depena. Alan has a unique martial arts story in terms of opening his business because he went from scratch, like no martial arts business, to having 3 locations in 3 years. So he's going to walk you through how he did that and all the challenges and what it's like going to location number 4, which is hopefully starting pretty soon. So Alan, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me. I love this podcast. So I also am a listener. So I follow. It's great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And he's the president of Zentai Martial Arts.
That's correct.
So tell me, like, when we started talking in the beginning, you told me that you have a totally different story and journey than most people, right? Like most people in martial arts kind of have a similar story to me. Like, they train when they're kids and they're assistant instructor to their sensei, and then maybe they give them an opportunity, maybe they don't. But yours was totally different. You were in New York, like as an engineer, I think you said, right?
Yeah. And I guess if I go a little bit even before that, so I did train as like a kid, right? And got my black belt when I was young, and then I stopped training. But one of the things I really got into was just like working with youth in my community. So I got involved with like ministry and like my church and stuff like that. And they like encouraged me like, oh, you should like share what you're learning with your friends and stuff like that. And at that time, I would go all the way to Jersey City. I lived in the Bronx, so long commute. So I opened up this like youth group, right, in my house. And it grew to like 20 to 30. And then we had like 2 days where we had like 30 people in my house. So I think at a young age, I just got comfortable with like helping people and coaching and kind of doing that line of work. And really became like personally, I guess, satisfying when you were able to like, I remember this one situation I had, a girl who had tried to commit suicide and, took a bunch of pills, passed out.
This is like a friend. Like, who is this person? How you associate?
So it was, I guess, a person from our same school. It wasn't even in my same circle, but through friends of friends, they invited her to my house, and we would just have like, I guess, character development type talks, right?
And you were doing this for free because
yeah, it was. I mean, I was like 13 years old, right? Like, so I didn't know anything, right? Or my impression, right, at that time was like, I can't do this. I don't even know anything. And like my mentor was just like, just do it. And like, here's these curriculums, just like talk to people and post these things. And I just did. And I was always like super impressed anytime someone knew a little bit of what I was going to talk about. And I'm like, oh my God, you must know more than me. And they would just like quote something like really famous or something like really popular, like life lesson that maybe their parents taught them. For me, it was the biggest deal in the world because I really felt like I didn't know anything, but I guess I just put myself out there, right? And credit to my mentor for like pushing me to do that. But that was a lot of like talking, right? So it was like a group of 20 people in my house and we're just like asking questions, like life questions and going over. And I would like to say coaching, but again, I was like 13 years old. So I was just like figuring it out myself. But I think that created that environment where people would share. So this one girl, she had tried to commit suicide. She came to our event then afterwards and we just had a good conversation. And I think because of that, and not that I was any kind of therapist or again knew anything, but I think just being empathetic, just being present for her just made such a difference in her life, right? And got her out of that funk, right?
Was she older than you?
No, she was around the same age.
Oh my God.
Yeah, 13, 14 years old. And, obviously I think back now, like if I wasn't there, who would have been there, right? Like she went to this like hangout, for lack of a better word, right? With a bunch of other teenagers and found something there that would lead her away from that and find value in her life. So I think from there, it kind of like stemmed. It was just like, wow, I feel good about this, right? Like hosting these things. And I kind of discovered that I could do a lot more than I thought I could, right? By just putting myself out there. So my life really led a lot around that. Did a few mission trips to like third world countries. That's actually one of the ways I connected the most with my wife. She led mission trips to like Haiti, Ecuador, Mexico, Spain, bunch of, different places, and just like helping people and giving back. So I think the heart of where we come from is just like serving people for free. Like you said, like that's just what we did, right? We wanted to help people.
Did you meet your wife on that trip? Is that how you met?
No, we were like in similar circles, but we were able to get closer like on a trip. So, but we were kind of friends beforehand. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I should bring some dates on mission trips, and that's how you get real close.
that's what you do. Yeah, that's one way.
Hey, baby, we're going to Haiti.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I did that. Then like you were saying, I was working in New York, worked on Wall Street, worked in information technology. Then I worked for like an automation company that did like artificial intelligence work. I was operations manager there, managed like 200 plus people globally, 13 different countries. So that was my thing. And I was very happy there. It wasn't like most people that are like, oh, I hate my job. This is terrible. I want to be my own boss and no, I was very happy with what I was doing. But on the side, I would still work a lot with youth and like coaching people. And that was kind of like just my passion, right? I think just my life, right? Like that's what I did. And then when I had my kids, they started, wanted them to do martial arts because I did martial arts when I was a kid. I'm like, oh, this is like, good for you to do and like do it. And then I started training myself. I'm like, oh, I might as well, go start hitting bags and doing it. So I kind of started getting involved myself. And then basically one day my instructor was like, hey, I'm going on vacation and like, would you mind like covering classes for me? And I'm like, sure, I could cover a couple classes. He's like, all right,
That's
cool.
how it always starts. And you just say, hey, do you mind covering a couple classes? I'm going to Disney World with my family.
He left for a month.
A month.
So I'm like, okay, cool. Like, we're talking like 2 or 3 days here. What are we talking about? Gives me the keys. Like, I'll be back in a month. I'm like, oh my God.
So what was your reaction? Were you like, yo, I can do this? Or were you like, this is terrifying?
I think, and I was okay with it because of my experience. I was comfortable with what I was going to teach. I was comfortable with people and like leading a group. And I also felt like it was very low risk because like it wasn't my school anyway. Right. Like, so it's not like, oh, what's the worst that's going to happen here?
Right.
I started doing it, but it was very unique because like I think in that setting I kind of discovered the power of influence that you have as a martial arts instructor. I don't know if it's because of like cartoons like Kung Fu Panda where everybody like listens to the sensei, but all of a sudden you're like talking to a kid about like, oh, you're not listening to your mom and like you should this, do your homework, and they're like, yes sir, yes master, yes sensei, and they agree and like it's so easy. I'm like, what is this secret power that I've been like trying to convince kids to like improve their life all my life, right? Like working with them. And it's like, oh yeah, of course you're going to say that. You're going to listen to you probably spoke to my mom. But if you come as a martial arts instructor, then they listen to you. I'm like, so I think I discovered that. And I was like, this is really cool. I need to do more of this. I think I'm in the wrong thing.
It's like a superhero in like a weird pajamas.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like all of a sudden you just put it on you, right? It's like, oh, now you listen to me? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I always tell whenever we have teachers that we're trying to show them what a career in martial arts could look like. I'm like, listen, you already love kids. You already love teaching. Imagine being in a position where you can avoid all the bureaucracy of a school. You don't have people yelling at you all the time. You don't see the kids for 8 hours a day. You see them for like an hour, right? Like if that's like a longer class probably. And they like adore you. It's like such a like esteemed position to be in that like we're just so fortunate.
And you get to develop a longer relationship with them.
Yeah.
Because even if you're a teacher, usually you have them for one school year.
Right.
And then they're gone, right?
Yeah.
Here you're seeing these kids, they were 3, 4 years old and, now they're 10, 12 years old. And you're like, well, I've been able to be there with you and develop this relationship. So
yeah, awesome. Even if like for me, even if I'm not directly involved with that student, if I started with them, like I was their first one that they saw as a lesson, they like, I just got recently a message on Facebook from one of the parents who like, the kid started with us when he was 5 and now he's like 15, and she sent me a picture of him and I didn't recognize this kid. I was like, who is this kid? And she was like, hey, I just want to send you a picture and thank you so much for all the times we talk about you guys all the time. And like, listen, did I teach this kid I was a part of his journey in the beginning? Yes. But after a while I kind of stepped back and there was other people teaching. So it wasn't really a big part of his journey in the second half, but it just shows the impact that martial arts teachers make.
Yeah, it's incredible. That's when it kind of clicked for me. And I was like, wow, I've been doing this through the wrong channel. And so I'm like, wow, we've been doing this through the wrong channel. Like this secret way that I just discovered of like through martial arts, it's so much more powerful. I have so much more leverage. So anyway, we kind of like, I kept doing my job, in New York, and then kind of kicked around the idea with my wife. I said, what do you think about starting martial arts school and think we could really make an impact and, change lives. And then I was like, I looked at the numbers. I was more like a business person. I'm like, I don't know if like it's going to be worth it. Like,
but why would you even think about that? Like you have a job, you like it. Yeah, you're running another martial arts school for a month while someone else is away. But what would make you even consider, oh, maybe I'll do this as a full-time thing?
Well, I didn't think about it as a full-time thing. I think I thought about it as a part-time thing. at first. Haha, little did I know, like how busy it
Joke's
gets,
on you.
right? Because again, this is like what we would do anyway, right? Like after work, I would go and like teach youth groups and stuff like that, like through like church or whatever, right? But the main point was like to impact these kids' lives positively. And then I just found like this is a way that I can have a bigger impact on more children faster and deeper. So I was like, this just makes sense with what we do. Yeah, we started looking, but then I don't want to like lose money, right? So I'm like, I don't want to open up this place. I got to pay rent and the lease just to like, like what do we do here? And my wife was a teacher. So she said, we should really do like an after school program. Funny thing, because everyone thought it was brilliant that we saw this. Wow, martial arts school with an after school program. Why isn't anyone else doing this? It's brilliant. And we're like, I don't know. No one never thought of this idea. Like, again, joke's on us, because then there's like all these martial arts schools in the industry teaching martial arts, but just no one happened to be doing it in our area. So for us, it was like, we thought we invented sliced bread, right? And it kicked off, but it helped us. And after school program did well. Martial arts did well. We leased a place. Everyone told me it was too big for my first location. And in 4 months, we outgrew that location. And
how big was it?
About 2,500 square feet.
That's not crazy.
Yeah. And then
too big. I don't know. Who would say it's too big?
People who have smaller schools for a longer time.
Got it. People who you shouldn't be taking advice from, essentially.
So we took, then a law firm left that was right next to us. So we kind of expanded there, took that over. 4 months after that, we were signing the lease for our building where we are still there. And it's a 7,200 square feet building, 4 stories.
That's huge.
So
4 stories?
Yeah. So it's kind of 4 stories, like 4 like fake stories, like loft kind of style,
Okay.
right? So it's like half this way, half half and half, but yeah, it's like 4 levels. So
what do you guys use the extra levels for?
Summer camps, after school program, and then the martial arts. And then we have like 1 floor, it's just like the lobby. Right. So it's pretty cool.
So 1 floor is lobby, other 3 floors are like training areas or
Right.
Okay.
So it's pretty neat because people walk in and they're like, is this like a martial arts school? Because all you see is like a really nice lobby.
Yeah.
You don't see, they're like, where are the mats?
Okay. You went from 0 schools to 3 schools like pretty quickly. So you opened up your one. You said in 4 months you moved to a new space.
Well, 4 months we took over the space that was next to us, so we kind of combined them both. And then 4 months after that, we were negotiating the lease for this bigger 7,200 square foot. But we actually physically moved in, I think, exactly 12 months after we opened.
Okay. And then how did you end up going from 1 to 3? How did, like, most people, like, they want to develop their school for 3 years, 5 years, and then eventually they'll have someone to move on. So even me, like, I am, like, somewhat courageous and bold, like, in my business ventures, but, like, that is, especially from scratch to that, is super impressive.
It's a good question. So I feel like, one, my wife and I have a lot of experience delegating work. She was deputy mayor of our town. Again, I worked in operations, led team over 200 people, 13 different countries. So I think where a lot of people struggle, like, do I have to let go of this? But they're going to make a mistake. And what if they don't do it as good? Like, I was completely comfortable with that. Like, I know you're not going to do it as, it sounds cocky, but like as good as I would do it, right? And no one feels like someone else is going to do it as good as they can. Because like, I know exactly what I want. But I was okay with that. I'm like, yeah, I know you're going to mess up. And I'm okay. And then I'm going to coach you and we're going to get better and we're going to improve. So I was comfortable with that. So I think that's the first thing, right? Being comfortable letting go. And then you're just like looking for people, training people, building them up. And then we, came across opportunity. We had someone that was at the time we thought would be really great to take over. And it helped us a lot because it did get me off the mats. Ended up, hurting us a little like later on, but, it helped us get to the next stage. Once I was off the mat, then it was a lot easier because I was completely not then in the school. My wife was not in the front desk. We hired someone to do that. And we really got to step back and just focus on developing leadership teams, looking for other opportunities. And then that's how 2 and 3 came about.
So when you went from 1 to 2, you said that eventually someone hurt you or that person. So what happened there?
So we went from 1 to 3 pretty quickly.
Because you had extra instructors? You had a lot of people like raising their hand, like, hey, I want to do this? Like, how'd that happen?
Funny enough, and it was in like 2020. So
in 2020, you had people raising their hand to start a martial arts school from your school. Or did you find them? Like, how did that?
So maybe then the jokes around me and just people were trying to get out and like I was just going in, right? So 2 things. First was someone that I knew that wanted to just get out of their school. Wasn't going good.
Okay.
Right. That was actually just before 2020, like tail end of 2019.
Okay.
So we kind of took it over 2020 and then like like as soon as we got the keys, like we shut it down.
Yeah.
It's like great,
Yeah.
So, but we were able to sustain the rent there.
How many students did it have when you took over?
It was supposed to have like 150, but when we actually took it over, it had like 60.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
So how much money was it making when you took over?
It was like, I don't know, less than 10.
Less than 10K a month.
Less than 10K a month.
Yeah.
It was, and it was supposedly making a lot more, but
of course,
the person who ran it like, when I got like the membership, there wasn't like a Spark or anything like that. It was literally a folder with applications, and you're gonna love it. So it had their tuition on the upper right-hand corner written down, and it had their credit card information all written down on all. So I have a folder full of everybody. I'm like, oh my God, this is such a violation of.
Oh yeah.
So every month they would split it up into like with sticky notes, like who they charged when, and like look at it, and they go, oh, here's the credit card number. Punch it in physically to the credit card machine, and run it like one by one.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, it was very hard to get like any kind of report on how they were. So when we got it, then we're like, okay, putting all this information into Spark, like, and then when we look at it, we're like, so you have like 60 students. They're like, no way, we have like 150. And we're like, no, like the students who are paying, right? There's 60 students, and like their rate at that time, it was like supposed to be 125, and it ended up being something like around $60 as well.
$60 a month. On
average, right? So, some people were paying 80, 90, and then you had other people paying 50.
Right. So for anyone that's listening, Spark is a CRM software for managing martial arts schools. So when you took that over, did you buy it or they just handed it to you? How did that transition work?
Interesting story. So the deal we made, the person ran a really good like fitness kickboxing class, which I wanted nothing to do with. So I was like, okay, how does that do for you? And he's like, oh, it does really well. Like he makes the majority of his income from that. So I said, great, this is what we'll do. I'll take over the location, no money. I'll take over the martial arts school. I'll run that. And I'll let you run the fitness program for free. Like you don't have to pay rent. You don't have to do anything. That's just all gravy for you. So you come in, teach your classes, you make all your money.
Sounds like a solid deal for you and for him.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I always try to think of, like win-win situations, right? Yeah. Like how do we make this win for both of us? So we did that. That was the deal. He was also a martial arts instructor. I kind of needed an instructor. So I'm like, hey, do you want to teach some classes still? Like you can still teach. He said, yeah, I need the money. I'm like, okay, cool. And we'll work out a price. He said, hey, I got to move out. I got to do this stuff. So could you pay me in advance? How much? Could you pay me for a year? And I'm like,
wait, you want to get paid for a year in advance?
Yeah. So,
by the way, if anyone wants to pay me for a year in advance, maybe for having them on the podcast or, just like, I'll teach at your school. I promise. Just pay me a year in advance. We'll see what happens.
That was pretty much. And I went for it, silly me. And I think the reason why I went for it is because my cost of acquisition was basically zero to get in. So I'm like, I could have bought this and went a different way. Like I'm already kind of saving my, I was expecting like if I'm going to open another school, like put capital into it. Right. So I'm like, I might as well just put that, pay him up front, seems like a good guy. And that way I have my instructor paid for a year.
And how much did you pay him?
$20,000.
Okay.
Yeah. So paid him $20,000. Great. Starts teaching. Then of course that was right, like I said, right before COVID. COVID happened. He dropped off the map. Right. Yeah. So
he just disappeared.
Didn't want anything to do with anything. Right. It was like, hey, can you help us? Like, we're doing Zoom classes. Like, you can come in. He's like, no, I'm not going out. COVID. So I'm like, okay, look, I understand. Like, there's no one in the school. Like, you could come to our school. We have the cameras all set up, computers, everything. I could show you what to do. Literally, no one will be in the building but you. You go, no, you didn't pay me to teach Zoom classes. I'm like, of course not. Nobody knew we were doing Zoom before this. So I said, okay, could you at least help us like call students and like let them know like don't quit. Yeah. Right? Because everybody was like dropping and he had a relationship with the students that at that location. No, not interested. So next thing you know, stopped replying to my texts, stopped replying to my calls, just dropped off the map. About 2 months later, I see him with like a drill in hand on Facebook and he's opened up a cafe. So I'm like,
well, he's got his seed money for the cafe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, joke's on me again.
Yeah. Thanks, Alan, for the espresso machine.
Exactly. Unfortunately for him, 2020 wasn't a good time to open up a cafe, a sit down, very nice kind of cafe. So that ended up closing.
Karma's a bitch.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate. I don't wish ill on anyone, but that kind of sucked. I kind of left that alone. Everybody was like, oh, you should like get your money back, like sue. And I was like, no, I don't care. I just wanted to like, keep moving forward. But I did end up suing him and getting the money back just because it ticked me off that then I started hearing from other people in the industry that like I had done something wrong to him or something like that. And I'm like, no, he like just took my money and left. Like he never came back.
So you won in court? Like you won your money back?
Yeah, yeah.
Damn. How was that process? Was that
well, I had a conversation with one person, one other martial arts school owner, and I was like, well, no, he just like took my money and like he just ran. I'm just whatever, you know? And they're like, well, I guess you'll have your day in court and like a judge will decide like who is right. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I will let a judge decide. So I called my lawyer and I said, listen, I don't want anything to do with this. I don't want a distraction. If I have to go to court, if I got to go testify, I'm not interested. Here's my paperwork. If you're telling me it's a slam dunk, everything's clear as day, then fine, go for it. If it's not, if it's any kind of complicated, I don't want anything to do with it. He was like, all right, send me the stuff. He looks over my paperwork, calls me back, you know, kind of upset. And he's like, who the hell wrote these contracts? You know, this thing is like so bad. And I was like, he's thinking like a lawyer. I was like, oh, it was me. Yeah. I wrote it up myself. He was like, don't ever do that again. This is like terrible. And I'm like, so like, do we like not have a case? He's like, no, of course you have a case. You gave him checks and like you wrote right on it. Like this is salary for like the year. And like literally I have a really bad contract and like checks that say I'm paying you for the year. Like it's such a simple case. So we went in, won the case. I think he pays me something every month still to this day.
Wow. How long ago is that? Oh, this is like 2020. So
yeah, 2020. So maybe that happened like 21. So
every time you get a check, you're like, oh, this is nice. Like money that like found money you almost think you didn't have.
You know what? It's so little. It's like, it's kind of meaningless. I think it's more like, I hope he gets the lesson from having to like go buy like a money order every month and like walk over by a money order, like put a stamp, put an envelope, write my name on it, right?
Such
and like,
a pain in the ass.
Like, I rather you pay, like my lawyer's like, oh, is it okay if like, you know, he wants to pay it slowly and stuff. I'm like, have him pay $50. He's paying 250, but I'm like, have him pay $50 a month. I don't care if he pays me for the next 10 years. It's like, I don't need the money. It's more of like that reminder, like, you really shouldn't do people dirty, you know, that's messed up. So
how'd you replace him? Like he left. Obviously COVID happened, so a lot of people were dropping. So what happened then?
So that kind of helped. And one of my younger instructors really stepped up a lot. I think COVID sped up things for everyone. So, you know, and Zoom you're kind of like a half-assed, you know, decent teacher.
Yeah, in person.
COVID was going to make you way better, right? Like if you can do that, you're going to be good. So we had a couple of instructors really kind of excel during that time, like get way better.
Because they had to sharpen their sword because it's way more difficult to teach in that setting. Yeah, okay.
So then once we started opening up, it's like, oh, we have more instructors now. So that's when we opened back up that location that was kind of closed towards the tail end of 2020. You know, I think January 1st of 21, we got the keys for the new place and opened up there. And we had that one. And then that was the instructor that kind of like, who originally had gotten me off the mat. So he was there. So that was cool. He took over that place and that's the one I told you that kind of ended up hurting me. It wasn't the one that actually took my money. The one that hurt me more was like, you know, everything that I do, it's about trying to help people and like making this. And I told you about the story of the girl like going to commit suicide and us helping her and, you know, these kind of situations. So this instructor grew up very old school, very traditional, as some people might say, where the instructors beat up their students. And that's how they teach them life lessons. Yeah. Which would be cool if they were like adult students, but you're talking about like beating up like, you know, 11-year-old. And it's like, what are you doing? So
that's how you end up on McDojo's Instagram and everyone going nuts at you.
Right. So, you know, he was very aggressive. We knew that. We were always kind of like coaching, like, okay, dude, you got to relax a little bit. You know, we use Melody Johnson's like skills program. So we're very like age specific and using like the science and psychology behind like teaching and like, this is not what we do like culturally. And then there was one particular day that I guess kind of, you know, sealed the deal for us. He basically teed off on a 13-year-old girl, really bad. I'm talking about like just punches to the face, girl ducks down, uppercut, just like boom, just rocks her, you know, she's falls down, she's dizzy, she can't see, you know, get her off the mats, get her ice, you know, get her water. She's sitting down. So I'm like, okay, this is like really bad. Like you're an instructor.
Did you see this happening? Were you in the room?
We saw that. It was actually during like a black belt testing of ours. So
he thought he had to be like extra tough on her because it was black belt testing situation?
I guess. So
what were you thinking when you saw this? You were like,
I mean, I was in the room. I saw like bits and pieces, like everybody was conspiring. Then I saw her like drop, like him hit her and like drop. I'm like, oh my God. So I get her, put her to the side. And if that wasn't bad enough, he walks over and like points his finger in her face and goes, just for I guess he felt bad because everybody else was like paying attention to her and we're like, dude, like what did he do? So maybe I don't know if he felt embarrassed or hopefully he felt some kind of ashamed, but the way he handled it was very poorly. So he puts his finger in her face and goes, just so you know, it's not my fault that you ate my punches. You ducked and, took my punches. And it's like, dude, like back off. Like, what are you doing right now? Like, what are you saying? So he leaves, like he goes, to the other side of the room. If that wasn't enough, what really kind of 100% sealed the deal for me, and we were talking about this before, it was like, as instructors and people who help people, we always feel like we can help people, right? Like this guy's being a total asshole right now, but can I help him? Can I coach him? Like, dude, this is wrong. You can't do this, right? Like there's always like a little bit of hope for doing this, but although this is, at this point, there's like, okay, there's not somebody I want to at all, anywhere near anybody. But the girl kind of slouches down on her chair and looks and goes, I just don't know what I did wrong. I don't know what I did to make him mad. And I was like, no. I was like, I'm done. Like, this is literally, we're trying to train people to be more confident versions of themselves, right? Stronger.
Yeah, you're trying to empower this girl.
We're literally doing the opposite. We're like programming for like domestic violence. It's crazy. So I was like, no, done. That was his last day. So I was like, you're done. You're out of here. And I spoke to people, and I think even he thought, because he was like the head instructor there, and he's really good instructor as far as like classroom management and teaching stuff. Good martial artist. Again, I like to say it's not his fault, like from the perspective of I think he was trained that way, right? I think his instructor beat him up and bullied him, and he just thinks that this is the way that you're supposed to do it. So unfortunately, that's kind of getting passed on. I'm like, not here. I can't help you anymore. Everyone's like, well, the school's going to close because you don't have another instructor. So, and I said, I remember telling this to someone, I said, I would rather close all 3 schools, go back and work in New York. I'm 100% fine with that, than run that kind of program. Like that's opposite of everything of why we do anything that we do. So that's complete. I'm 100% fine. We'll close all 3 schools. We'll go back. Obviously, the one up grabs was that one, but we didn't have to. So good news is we had another instructor, that was an assistant instructor, step up. So we kind of played a little musical chairs, moved somebody else from another school, from the second school to this one that was the third, and moved the assistant instructor up to take over that other school, and he's rocked it out. And I think he had the best year. That assistant instructor, I think, had a better year than out of my 3 schools. So
that's awesome. And it's funny how martial arts teachers, they're so respected and so loved from their students. That kind of thing can happen because their ego can get too big, right? They kind of blow up, like almost like this like God sense in like their little martial arts school.
Yeah. So in addition to having values in our organization, we like to have anti-values. And like one of the anti-values is bullying, right? So it's just like, because you see a lot of that. And it's like that, not like bullying, like, hey, give me your lunch money. That's not what's going to happen. And that's what but it's exactly that, right? It's like, I'm higher rank, or I'm just like tougher. I can fight better. So I'm just going to, and no, that's bullying. You're not trying to actually make your partner better. You're just trying to show off your skills. So yeah, unfortunately, that's the way a lot of people were brought up. And some people just haven't had the know-how to adjust that and to grow from that. Go, okay, this is wrong. That person hurt me by doing this. I'm not going to do that to the next generation.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it's like common in general with any abuse, right? It's like a cyclical. Like you get abused and you abuse someone else, and they've been abused. They abuse someone else. It's hard to get out of that.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's brave of you. I mean, I guess honestly, like in that situation, is pretty obvious what to do. You got to cut this person out. But if he's like your head instructor, like I think some people would probably keep him, like, or say, oh, I'm going to help him, or just try to deal with the situation. But I think it was good foresight. Like sometimes you got to prune the tree to grow the tree, right? And that's essentially what you did. And we've had instructors in the past plenty of times where like they were good for a while, but then eventually like the relationship sours, or they start doing weird things or getting ahead of themselves, and it's always scary to let them go. But when we do, like usually it's a couple weeks or months of like transition that kind of sucks, but it's way better afterwards. It's a different culture, different feeling, and it's always better.
It's when we had a couple conversations about him being too aggressive, like this is not going to work beforehand. Unfortunately, we took too long. He knew, I would say, how to tug at my heart from a person who likes to pour into people and develop people. Like he would literally be in my house, physically, like crying, like tears, and going, yeah, I know I've messed up with these things. Can you help me get through this, get better?
Like, they deny that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh man, you're being such a jerk. But like, now you do this and you want to grow. Like, how does someone like us that bases their life off of helping people and someone's in tears going, help me get better? How do you say, well, no, I can't help you? So that kind of kept him on board with us for like a few months longer. But then again, when that girl said that, I was like, okay, then you know what? Then it's my fault. I failed. I cannot help you. Like, I tried to get you out of this mentality. I can't do it. Maybe you need like a therapist. You need someone else to like help you out with it, but I can't do it. So you can't be on this team.
So how did you salvage that situation? Did you talk to that girl's parents? Like, what did you say to her afterwards?
So yeah, we spoke with her, her mother. You know, one of the things like that we said is like, okay, these people can sue us and him and everything. Like, it's probably the best thing for us to part ways. So her parents are just like really, really happy that we made that. I think they were very clear. She was already a black belt, so she was going to, like, they had been with our school for a while.
She already loved you and had a lot of rapport.
But I think they understood the decision that I made to let him go and really, really respected that. Like, after that happened, like, same day we let him go, and they're like, you're awesome, right? Like, they're like, we respect that for you doing that. So we still have a great relationship with her and the family and stuff like that. She's not training. She's an avid soccer player, but her younger brother trains with us. So yeah, it's awesome. So, and after, of course, we let him go, everybody comes out of the woodwork. We get like parents going, oh, thank God you let him go. He was like so aggressive. I found out a 12-year-old girl stopped attending, canceled their membership. And, we got to speak with the mother after we let him go. She started having panic attacks when she saw this instructor. She would see this instructor have a panic attack. Of course, no one ever told us. No one ever does, right? It's like, now they tell us. So we got them help and she got therapy and she's back in training. That girl actually came back to the school and started training again and she's doing great. So super proud of her. Amazing, amazing. But you hear this afterwards. Actually, just this week, heard from someone else, another fellow martial arts instructor that's a friend of mine. He told me, he's like, oh yeah, I got one of your students that said they used to train there a couple years ago, but they left because like the instructor was too aggressive. I was like, no. I was like, was it this instructor? They're like, yes. I'm like, could you please tell them that we fired him and that's not like what we do? Like, as soon as we knew about it, we did fire him. So
well, that's great that they, obviously it sucks they went to a different school, but it's great that they still got involved in martial arts again because that could turn them off forever.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So now you're at school 3. I know we talked about before we started recording potential location number 4. So tell me, like, you're obviously having a lot of growth and you're very bold in your movement. Like, you're not just like, I'm going to sit here for 30 years and maybe I'll give someone else an opportunity. You're like, all right, you're always looking for opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So tell me how this 4 school might be coming about. Like, what's that process look like?
I think first of all, before you even consider like 4 schools or anything like that, I think it's a lot about growing yourself and like, what are you constantly feeding yourself? And I'm very, very invested in my own personal growth constantly. And I think a lot of people grow schools too quickly and expand. And I look at it kind of like wearing clown shoes, like you're wearing like sneakers that are like way too big for you and you're just going to trip, right? Like you're just going to flop over yourself and trip. Or there's other schools that are too afraid to change their pair of shoes and grow. And they have like their toes like popping out of their sneakers. Like, okay, that doesn't fit you anymore. You need to get a bigger shoe and they won't make the move. So I think it's about your own personal growth, recognizing where you are, and you're ready to put on a new, pair of sneakers that actually fit you. So I think when you're in that position, things just kind of come up, right? So this was just another opportunity that we're talking about where there's another school, awesome instructor. This person trains, he's an educator in the public school system and also is a professor in the university that teaches future educators how to teach. And he runs a school. So he's really busy and just like swamped. And it's like, I can't deal with all the business side. I love the martial arts, but I don't want to deal with this part anymore and be able to focus on the other stuff. So I said, well, we can help you there. So we're basically sorting out a deal where we're going to take it over and he'll still stay involved and to some degree and continue rocking that out. So that just kind of, I think those opportunities come up like everything else, right? When you're ready for it. Like if you're ready, it's going to come up and you're going to be prepared to take on that opportunity.
Yeah, and I think what you said about your business can't outgrow like your own like leadership level, your own self, right? Like John Maxwell talks about this in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Have you read that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we use that to train our instructors. So we go like step by step. So you don't have that 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. It's awesome. You can get like worksheets that come along with it, and you can each week with your staff and your team, you can go through each law and how to apply it in the martial arts school. It's super good. But one of the things he talks about is the law of the lid. And the law of the lid is like you can only lead people that are past, or you can only lead people that are below you in your leadership level, right? So if you're a leadership level, let's say is number 7, you could lead anyone who's a 7 or below, right? But you can't lead 8 or 9 or 10. So you have to always advance your leadership level in order to get people to a better leadership level themselves, right?
It's like martial arts, right? Like your rank, like you're going to rank up to your rank, like you can't rank past that. It's exactly that. You need to continue growing to be able to help other people.
And if your personal life is screwed up, it's going to be very difficult to make your business life screwed up or, on track.
We always say it's all one life. You don't have a professional life and a personal life. You have one life and you're just doing things at different times, right? And if your personal life is not in order, then your business is not going to be in order.
Yeah, 100%. So we're at location number 4. And I think the most important thing is, like you said, like you need to have opportunity for people, and it needs to come out of like the goodness of your heart that you want. That A, you have the ability to grow, but B, like you want to be able to help more people achieve like their goals, right? So is there any part of you or maybe your wife, like any hesitation, like, hey, maybe we're growing too fast, or maybe we're outgrowing those shoes, or we should do something else?
We've thought about, doing other things, but I think, it's like you said, it's like the way we're thinking is mainly helping people. Right. So before I used to focus on the students, like the kids, and coaching them and developing them. Now it's like coaching my team and developing them. And then that just keeps growing. So they need to go to the next level. They need to continue growing. And I almost feel like I owe it to them and my students to continue creating those opportunities. I think for some reason I'm either good at it or I've gotten lucky at it, but at creating opportunities where people can. And I would create, going back to New York, I would get people jobs all the time, right? And even if they didn't really know how to do that job, like they weren't like the most prepared, I was like, we're going to put you on and don't worry, I'm going to teach you this. I'm going to help you out here. And then they would get it and they would do well. So kind of trying to create those opportunities for people. But in that environment, you can't control, like if they still get a supervisor that's a jerk to them or something like that, right? You're not controlling the whole culture of the company that you got them in. In this case, you get to create a culture, an environment that is, that people want to work in. That's a great place. And then, create opportunities. So it's just great. So I think I find a lot of satisfaction in that. And I almost feel like because I know how to do it, it would be wrong of me not to. Like if I don't expand, if I don't grow another school, then someone who really could have been a great martial arts instructor, but maybe that good at the business side of things, never has the opportunity to A, reach their full potential, and B, impact the lives of all these children to continue positively impacting all these people. So it would be like shame on me to just think of myself and go, well, I'm kind of good right now. I'm comfortable. I don't need to, why take any more risk? Why take any more stress? I can just kind of stay right here and like, go hang out with Randy Reed and Cosmelt, right? But it's like, no, I owe it to my instructors. I owe it to those students to be able to create that opportunity for them for training, for growth, for development.
Yeah, and I think if you have a skill set, it's like almost like a moral obligation to see the potential.
Yeah.
Like I always think my biggest fear is, and this is like common, is that like, you're on your deathbed and you're like, oh, I could have done more.
Yeah.
I could have, seen my family more. I could have developed my business more. But, I was scared or nervous. Like I got this from Alex Hormozy. He talks about how when you die, people care and they're upset for a couple months, right? But then what happens? Everyone moves on. Life goes on. No one really cares after that. You might have family that mourn for a year, remember you on anniversaries and stuff. But no one really gives a shit.
Right.
Like only the closest people to you, and that's only for short amount of time. They got to move on with their life. Mm-hmm. So like the idea of not doing something because you feel like you can't, or you feel like you'll be ridiculed online. Oh, people will be mumbling and saying, "Oh, he's not ready for that. He can't do that. Too big of a school. Like he can't grow their business like that. I can't believe he's doing this tactic for blah blah blah." Like none of that stuff matters. No one really cares.
Or like the bad word of ambition, right? So I grew up from like a poor family, right? So, and then like the Spanish kind of, so what funny, like if you're poor, right? It's called being humble. Like it's literally synonymous. Like you would say, oh, that, if it's a poor person, right? You say, oh, that's a humble person, right? So it's like, And you think about the psychology behind that, right? It's like, so if you're not poor, you're not humble, right?
What's the word for it?
Humilde. Yeah, it's humble.
Is that specific Hispanic culture, or is that just like Hispanic culture overall, you think?
I think it's overall. I would think it's over. I think that's pretty, across, at least the ones that I know. Like you would consider someone who's poor as someone who's humble. Like that's
so do you feel guilt, or is there a part of you that feels guilt when you make money or want to have something bigger because that's kind of been bred in you?
There's a part of me that knows about that train of thought. I think I'm past that, but I know that it exists because in my culture and maybe like family or friends they're going to think that way. Like they're going to say, oh, well, you have one school and it's successful. Why do you need to do two? You're being like ambitious, like not humble, right? You're, 3 going to 4, like, oh, you're just being greedy. Right. So it's looked at as a negative thing. Like ambition is a negative thing. Right. So to grow, to do more is a negative thing, where I'm thinking like, no, it would be wrong of me. Like what we just said, right. It would be wrong of me not to create these opportunities for people and not to continue growing and expanding. That's not using my talents. That's what's wrong. I think that's another kind of barrier that, at least in the Spanish culture, needs to be broken a lot. Right. People don't think about that. I even heard of people say like, oh, this person, you should, he can fix up your house. Like I got this great carpenter and he doesn't charge a lot of money. He charges like very little because, he's religious and like he's Christian. So like he goes to church. And I'm like, how does those two go together? So it's like, if he's going to charge me one amount and someone else is going to pay him more, he won't take, like it's supply and demand, right? It has nothing to do with if you're cheating someone, that would be wrong. Okay, you can say, listen, he's an honest person. He's not going to tell you this thing is broken when it's not really broken and be unethical. He's, a religious person. Okay, great. I can see how you can make that connection. But to say he charges very little because he's religious, I'm like, that it shows the kind of thinking that even subconsciously, I think holds people back. Like they don't express it in the words that I'm using right now. I don't think they're so in the front of their mind, kind of open, oh, this is why I'm holding myself back. But subconsciously they are, because all of a sudden you're like on the other side. You're like the non-humble person, you're the greedy person, and you're bad.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like really mindset has so much to do with it. If you want to be successful in business, you got to control what's going on between your ears more than anything. And I think that's kind of what we were getting to before we went on a bathroom break. Because like if your personal life is effed up, or you don't have like good habits, or like just anything in your life is like not working outside the business, the things that are happening inside the business probably not going to work either.
It's definitely, and if it does work, it's just, I think, going to be for a short period of time. Right?
Yeah,
eventually
totally.
going to catch up.
And like, for me personally, just so people, I guess, can maybe have been in similar situations. Like, I would say most people would agree that I'm like pretty motivated and ambitious, and I have a lot I want to achieve, and I'm like hardworking. It's like part of my identity, right? But then I have like a breakup after being together for a long time, and man, like that's like just it throws a wrench in everything, and all of a sudden this like how I see myself and my identity is not how I'm acting, and it's kind of like all those things that are super important to me, like we're thrown out the window. Like there was a solid, I would say, I'm still going through it a little bit, but like not as bad as the beginning, but a solid like 6 to 8 week window where I just didn't give a shit. I didn't give a shit about my business. I didn't give a shit about going to the gym or my training. And it's just like crazy how this like whirlwind can happen. Now, of course, you want to get back to it as quickly as you can, but give yourself time to heal. I think I was very impatient. I just wanted it to be like, oh yeah, I broke up, but I'm going to focus all on my business. I'm going to dive deep. I'm going to have no more distractions. It's not really how it went, right? Yeah. And so if you're like trying to grow your business, but you're in a fight with your wife or girlfriend or husband, or you have all these other things that are just like not aligned with what you want to achieve, or you have people yapping in your ear, right? You're trying to lose weight and your friends are like, oh man, why you want to diet? Like, come on, let's go out. Or like, oh, you can have a piece of cake. It's a Saturday. Oh, you can do blah, blah, blah. It's like usually the people that are closest to you are the ones that can pull you back.
Absolutely.
Right? Because like they see it as a threat. Like, oh my gosh, this person, like kind of like the humble, what was that word again in Spanish?
Humilde.
Humilde. So I'm doing Duolingo Spanish, so that hasn't been on there. I got a 100-day streak right now, so I'm feeling pretty good. So I'm going to try to remember that one. But yeah, usually it's the people that are closest to you that hold you back because they feel like, oh, this person, they feel threatened. Like this person might leave, right? Okay, this person is too ambitious. They might not talk to me anymore if they make more money. And like, not that they're consciously thinking that, but it's like an unconscious thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my partner gets in better shape. They're not going to be attracted to me anymore. They're going to find someone else, right? So we really have to be in check with like what we're saying to the people around us because like whether we all think we're nice and supportive, but like they're still a part of us. Like, that doesn't want people to like surpass us if they're in the same spot, right?
Yeah, and I think on the flip side of that, sometimes we're trying to help people who are not going to go further. Funny, I actually heard a Jay-Z song the other day, and he's talking about like his biggest weakness, I think, or something like that, and he says it's love, his love for like people around him and stuff like that. And like one of the lines, he says something like, "I'm trying to teach them how to be kings, and all they ever want to do is be a soldier." So it's like you have these people that are like soldier marching on, and you're like, hey, I'm trying to teach you like so you can level up and go to this. I'm trying to get you here, and they just go back and they're like, well, I'm just a soldier and it's gonna do this and do the same thing, and it's hard, I think, for us because especially when you have friends that you care about, people that are close to you that you care about, and you put in the work to level up and to grow, and you're trying to show them like, hey, you can do this too. It's like the opposite of the hate, right? Like you want to see other people succeed as well, and they're just not there. They're just like, no, I'm fine here. And then what ends up happening is that they'll try to hold you back, and not because they want to, right?
Because they're believing the things they're saying,
yeah,
right?
And not because they want to. Also, if they haven't grown, they can't see it, right? Just like, when I opened up my first martial arts school, and they're like, well, that's too big. And it's like, well, of course it's too big for you, right? Yeah. But, if I would have spoken with you, you would have been like, well, yeah, that's totally cool, like no big deal. For me, I was already thinking, oh, wow, I'm taking this big leap because the people who I had in my ear were telling me that's going to be too big. So I'm like pushing the boundaries here. Yeah, if you have a conversation with someone else, it's like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Or yeah, maybe that's too small. Do you want to do a little, bigger? Do you want to go over here? And I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and she wants to buy a house. And her family, recently moved to another state. I won't give too many details. And it was like, oh, you can't buy a house. It's going to be hard to, buy one in Jersey, in this area. It's too expensive. But they don't own a house here. So it's like, if you don't, then like they're not kind of like in the best position to give that advice. Of course, it's going to be hard for you to do because you haven't done it. But if you have, and you have like real estate investments, you can look at that person and be like, oh yeah, sure. There's like, I can give you a plan. Like, this is what you got to do. And in a couple of years you buy a house. Like, no big deal at all. And it's like, really? You think so? It's like, yeah, like, no, I know so. Like, you can 100% do it. It's not hard. Like, here are the steps. So it's so clear to one, it's unclear to another. And it's not their fault. They just haven't seen it, right? Like, I don't know, if I was in a room talking with like, Elon Musk, he'll probably be saying stuff. I'm like, that won't work. How is that ever gonna? I wouldn't be able to see it because I'm not at his level.
World internet through a satellite. I'd be like, what the hell?
What are you talking about?
Like, I teach karate. Like,
exactly.
I'm just a soldier.
So we're all at different levels. It's not a knock on anyone, right? Like if you just need to know personally that you need to be careful who you're listening to and question, okay, are they at the level where I want to be? If not, it's not that they're trying to be bad. It's not that they're trying to hold me back like in any kind of malicious way. It's just they can't see it. I need someone else who can see a little further than I can, that knows, and then can give me proper advice.
Yeah, and like you said, only take advice from people who have what you want, or they are who you want to be in that situation, right? Like I was recently talking to like a really close friend of mine, and he's like, giving me like relationship advice. And I'm like, how many relationships have you been in? Okay, I'm going to ignore everything you just said. Don't get me wrong. There might be some truth to it. It might be some good things. But like, if I want a really great marriage, I should talk to someone who's been married for a long time. And I admire their relationship, right? If I want to have a really great business, I'm not talking to the person who's never had a business, right? If they tell me like business advice, like people who don't have a business love telling giving you business advice. Right?
They're the best at it.
Yeah. Hey, here's how you should do things. Oh, I would do it this way. How many businesses do you have? Oh, 0. Oh, okay. Well, everything you just went in one ear.
But listen to this YouTube video.
Yeah, listen to YouTube. Exactly. And like the best part is, the best advice I get is, or the best like comments I get are always on YouTube or Instagram. Oh my God, I get good ones, dude. I usually screenshot them because they're funny. Like recently, some dude said he said, this guy sounds like SpongeBob and like some other ridiculous character. Like who's a comedian that talks like this with his like face all scrunched up?
I
You
don't
know
know.
what
I'm
I'm talking
horrible at
about?
names. Nah.
I forget what this comment was. It was like this guy sounds like SpongeBob and blah 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 had a baby, and I was like, I saw it, and I was dying,
Yeah.
And people would be like, "Yo, if I sound like that, I'd kill myself." Like
Yeah.
people would say the craziest shit,
Yeah.
or like, yeah, they just say nuts. But I'm like, I'm not taking advice or gonna change what I do from a YouTube comment, right?
And I think one of the things of like leadership, you always think about leading people and people following you. But I think of leadership as solving problems, right? So whoever can solve the biggest problem is in charge, right? Like if we're all trapped in this room and there's like a fire and we're like stuck in here, like whichever one of us figures out a way out, like, oh, I have an idea, we could get out the ceiling here. Like that person's now the leader, right? Like you have the solution to our problem. So I think as you level up, you're focused on bigger problems, right? So you should be trying to find a bigger problem. So that's like a very small, if you could even consider it a problem, right? Like, oh, these people are saying these mean things. And, or someone cut me off on the road. Like if that's the biggest problem that you have in your day, the fact that this person cut you off on the road, you need bigger problems, right? You need to go find, you're never going to get out of problems, right? It's not like, oh, I've reached this level of success, I now have no problems. No, you actually have bigger problems. You're just better at dealing with them, right? So, and in fact, I would say you seek those problems, right? It's like, I want to find a bigger problem to solve. Like, this is cool. I solved this problem. All right, these problems are easy. How do I solve the problem now of running 4 schools instead of 3? How is that going to be different? I'm excited about that, right? That's going to be a challenge. There are going to be things that are going to come up that I don't know about yet. And I'm excited to learn about it and solve those problems. But if I'm stuck on, someone left a comment, someone said, then how am I ever going to be thinking about those bigger problems?
Yeah. So what do you think the biggest problem is right now with Zentai? What's the biggest challenge?
Biggest challenge with Zentai. So my biggest focus point right now is continuing developing people to take a more of a leadership role, getting their buy-in.
Do they own any of the school, or you own 100% of it? And
I own 100.
Okay.
Yeah. From every level, right? Just kind of having that, I want to grow and be more committed at what we're doing. And I think casting that wider net to get more people interested. And I think that's something that, honestly, I think in the industry, Action Karate does the best, right? At just recruiting people from what I would say, like the sidelines, right? Like parents and stuff like that. Like, hey, this is really cool. Get certified as an instructor, whether or not you instruct later, right? I mean, maybe just get certified. And then from that, you expand your pool of people that would be interested, and it kind of grows from there. So I think that's really, really cool how you guys do that. So that's something that I'm trying to cast a wider net and reach more people. So I'm passionate about changing lives. I'm passionate about helping people, right? I love that. I think there's a lot more people like that, and just don't have the opportunity. So I want to show those people who thought they couldn't, like, oh yeah, I would love to do that, but like, I don't know anything, like kind of like how I felt when I was 13 years old, and say, no, you actually can do something, and here's how, and kind of motivate them and kind of knock down that wall for them that they think, well, I'm not someone that can do that. I would love, that person that helps someone cross the street, that sees, an older person on a rainy day and is willing like to throw them in their car, like, hey, you're getting wet, let me drive you home. And they're just like caring people, right? Like those people should have an opportunity to make a bigger impact in the world. So how do I reach out to all those people, gather them in, and give them an opportunity for that, be it through Zentai or through their own channel, right? Like maybe it's just by leadership development. Like you talk about, you'd use, John Maxwell's, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I think that's great stuff to give anybody in the community. Maybe we can help out little league coaches or basketball coaches and help them be a better coach, and go do that. That's fine. But I just want to help you have a bigger impact in whatever it is that you're doing. I think inevitably some people are going to be like, well, can I work at Zentai? And then that'll help our organization grow too. But it's just about helping people in general, just kind of be better versions and kind of tap back into that care and that passion about helping people and do more of that. I think there's a lot more people in the world that, people are so cynical, right? They're like, oh, people don't care. Nobody cares. Everybody's mean. I think those people just stand out. And I think we need to give the people who do care a platform and give them the tools to be able to, feel comfortable leading and making a difference.
Very cool. And I think exactly what you said, like giving people opportunity that sometimes they don't know it even exists. Like we have an instructor who I had to add up online, and he's a black belt, runs another school. He was teaching most of the classes. He was making $500 a month, working another job at like PetSmart. And I already hired an instructor, like full time. I didn't need him at all. Zero. Okay. But like after I had the other instructor, I kept on thinking about him. I'm like, man, he's like so like passionate. You know, he's a little rough around the edges. He's not as like polished as our instructors are because he was at a school. It's like small time. You know, the guy has been teaching there forever and like not really much room for growth, and he doesn't get a lot of training there, not a lot of instructor training. And I called him and I was like, hey, listen, this is not a good offer. I'm just telling you that I think like you have a lot of potential, but I don't need you. I already hired someone for the position. Okay. But I would like to find a way to have you on board. And if you can find a way to make that work, great. You're not going to be paid like the way I want you to be paid because I just don't have an opening. Right. And he's like, I'm like, how much you making now? He's like 500. And I was like, you're only making $500 a month? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, I figured out the budget, figured out how I'm going to move people's hours around. I'm like, okay, I can give you $1,500 a month. Now, like, that is not how much we pay people. Like, that's ridiculous. If you want to do it, great. If not, totally okay. You know, you just have to really be here for classes, do a couple things during off hours, but, you know, you don't have to be like at the same, I guess, responsibilities full time. But if you put your energy and effort into it and you become so polished that I literally can't live without you, then we'll happily hire you and find a spot for you. Right? We just passed like the year mark with him. And he's going to be like someone else moves, so you know, someone else like quit, and we move some people around. I'm like, all right, man, you ready to be a head instructor? And he's like, I saw his face turn. I'm like, yeah, you know, now he's gonna be making between $4,000 and $6,000 a month, and like, you know, he's literally like tripling his income, and he's just like, holy crap, like and he's a different instructor from when he first started, like not even close. Like I made him send me videos before I even do interviews. I say, hey, take a video of you teaching class and send it to me. And I watched it, and I was like, you know, just okay. And if you watch him teach class now, he's like a different person. Yeah. And it's just so cool to see that.
You know, there's two perspectives, right? Someone will say like, oh, you know, Matt's just trying to grow his business and like take advantage of this person, hire him for really cheap. And then like, you know, if he becomes good, like you can make a whole negative story around that, right?
Yeah,
or like,
totally.
How wrong would it have been to not give that person that opportunity, to not help him get better, to not help the students that he's now helping, right? Having that impact. Like that would have been wrong if you were just like, oh no, let me hold back and not because I don't need an instructor. So that's you giving, right? I just think that's awesome.
Yeah, and I genuinely felt bad. Like I was like, I don't want to pay someone that. Like, you know, like that's not even like respectable. Right? Now for him, he was already tripling.
He was tripling, yeah.
And now he's tripling it again, right?
Yeah.
So for him, it was great, but like I don't feel pride in that. Like I feel pride in paying my people well.
Yeah.
Like I want my people to be like, oh, I make this much. Like we're at a martial arts convention, and they're talking to another person who's like, you know, on the team, an instructor somewhere else, and they're like, wait, you make that much? Like, I want them to like be like almost like show off a little bit. You know, I want them to be prideful, like in their position and their benefits. You know, we give everyone retirement and healthcare, and we give them PTO. So
I think the most important thing also is the quality of life. Right?
Yeah,
like people are working jobs that they're not happy with, or like they're not happy with the hours. They can't take a vacation. They can't do so being able to create an environment where they can, you know, have the quality of life that they want. So like what I try to do with my instructors is like they can work as little or as much as they want, and they'll get paid based on that. But it's really up to them, like how much it could. And there's like other pieces that pick up for that if they don't. Like if you don't want to work so much and you want to like hang out more and take it easy, you make a little less money. That's cool. You can still be a head instructor, and this is how this works out. Or you can go, hey, I want to like make more money and I'm ready to put into work. Okay, so work full-time, do this stuff, and you make a lot more money. But you have that control to almost like a dial to be able to put that in. I think that's pretty neat. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here. And if someone wanted to contact you, like, yeah, Alan Depena is cool, president of Zen Thai Martial Arts, how do I find him?
Well, they can find me on Facebook, Instagram. My Instagram is just my last name, Depena, and Alan Depena at Facebook. That's the best place.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for listening. My name is Matthew Brenner. If you are interested in growing your martial arts school, you want to learn how to scale your business without ads through organic marketing strategies, call that the Triangle Codex. You can reach me on Instagram at blackbeltbrenner1 or send me an email, matthew@doubleyourdojo. You have to be outside of our territories, of our schools that we run in order to be eligible. Now, if you want to be a part of a bigger bigger organization and you see yourself opening up a martial arts school or maybe joining a bigger organization, you could also reach out to me personally. That'll be separate from Double Your Dojo. And yeah, we can help you out with that. So thank you so much for listening and have a great day. Bye, guys.